Hello, my name is Michael Strassmaier. I'm in International Business 580 on Team 14. My CIBE presentation is on Japan, and my topic for week 3 is why is Japan restarting the Sendai reactor? Recently, while on a sabbatical trip across Asia, I noticed many large ships with round containers. Someone explained to me that these are actually liquid natural gas ships heading to Japan. After the Fukushima nuclear disaster, Japan had shut down its reactors and now has resorted to importing gas and other fossil fuels for its energy source. The Fukushima disaster highlights the risk of nuclear power. The tsunami triggered a 13-meter tall wave that overwhelmed the plant's 10-meter seawall. Today, mass amounts of nuclear-tainted water leach into the ocean, and it could take up to 40 more years to clean up the site. At the time of the disaster, Japan had 54 nuclear power plants in operation, and the reliance on foreign resources for power was less than 50%. These reactors provided 30% of the country's electricity, and Japan had planned to increase this to about 50% by the year 2030. The Japanese government immediately set a policy in place following Fukushima to end nuclear power in Japan. And since then, they have become the world's largest natural gas importer, the second largest importer of coal, and the third largest importer of crude oil. Today, Japan imports about 84% of its power. The graph below illustrates how Japan shifted from nuclear power to mostly imported fossil fuels. Japan's trade balance went from $65 billion surplus in 2010 to a $112 billion deficit just in the last 3 years since the disaster. Most of this has been attributed to the cost of higher fuel imports. These graphs illustrate the price instability of oil and gas on the international market and also reveal the price increases that have occurred over time. Japan has no control over pricing for fuel, and its economy is at the mercy of the international fuel market. Japan's main natural gas suppliers are Indonesia, Malaysia, Brunei, UAE, and the United States. Just to highlight how much this costs to move fossil fuels is a ship costs about $210 million apiece, a factory can cost between $500 and $900 million to construct, and an oil tanker costs between $58 and $120 million. Economic pressure has forced Japan to reconsider the decision to take the nuclear plants offline. Japan's economy is stalled. The rising costs of importing fuels to produce energy are simply not sustainable, and they're inhibiting growth. Japan is spending about $30 billion a year to import oil, coal, and natural gas. Public, political, and environmental pressures have also been a major factor in Japan's decision to restart the nuclear reactors. Nuclear power is highly unpopular with the local people. Using fossil fuels has made it more difficult for Japan to meet its targets in reducing carbon emissions. Some lessons learned by Japan from this energy crisis. Importation of fossil fuels is cost prohibitive. Countries that have very few natural resources like Japan have found it nearly impossible to sustain an economy where most power has to be imported. And renewable energy has increased from 7 to 11%, mostly due to hydroelectric generation since 2011. Other lessons learned include, Japan must continue to develop alternative power supplies, again, hydroelectric and solar, and they have found that they are simply unable to end reliance on nuclear power. This raises the question, is it feasible to export resources to power a country? It is difficult to nearly impossible, based on the case study from Japan. CO2 emissions and the expenses are the two major challenges. It may be possible with a small, non-exporting country like Singapore. For the next steps, Japan has backed away from its no-nuclear reactor strategy, and although it's still possible, some are estimating it may take 30 years. 25 more nuclear power plants are applying for restart. It's doubtful that all will get approval soon because of the significant public opposition, but most likely we will have more power plants in operation. Thank you for your time. I have listed my resources below. I encourage you to read and study more on this topic as I have found it was very interesting. Thank you.